This is my interpretation of the Ministry of Truth explained from the book itself. The first thing that needs to be discussed is the size of the ministry. Winston believes the building contained, it was said, 3,000 rooms above ground level and corresponding ramifications below, end quote. More direct, as it's alluding to the building being massive, it shows that this through the looks of the building as it is physically imposing and massive. Winston then goes on to describe the layout of the building by first explaining how the memory holes work, as it was an automatic action to lift the flap of the nearest memory hole and drop it in, referring to old paper, to the enormous furnaces which are hidden somewhere in the recesses of the building, end quote. Not only is this a direct physical description of what the building looks like, this also shows the feelings of the people working in there and helps to paint a better picture of how much they've been brainwashed to throw unnecessary objects away. Later, more of the building's layout is detailed to us, as Winston makes mention of the fact that there were the huge printing presses with their sub-editors, their typography experts, and their elaborately equipped studios for the faking of photograph. End quote. This is a physical, indirect way of showing the massive ramifications of the building, as Winston is thinking about what he has seen, but it's not exactly telling us that the building has more places like this. Back in time a little bit, Winston describes the general size of the halls and of the building by writing about the events of the 2 Minutes Hate. He says that they were dragging the chairs out of the cubicles and grouping them in the center of the hall opposite the big telescreen, in preparation for the 2 Minutes Hate, end quote. Winston directly describes the size of the room he's in by saying that it is quite large, but we can also infer that the room is so large that it can fit many chairs and people, as well as discovering more about the feeling of the people to all gather and participate. These next two quotes are referencing the emotional setting of the Ministry of Truth being extremely sad and business-focused. The author tells us that the room, referring to the cafeteria, was already very full and deafeningly noisy. This tells us more about the feel for the building, as it can be extremely overwhelming, as there are many people in the building, but not one of them are supportive of anyone. The people of this world are all separated by the party and are barely able to interact with one another, leading to a lonely and depressing world. When Winston enters into his workplace, he goes on to describe his walk. In the long windowless hall, with its double row of cubicles and its endless rustles of paper and hum of voices murmuring into speakwrites, end quote. It describes not only the look of the hallways and cubicles, but also the sounds you can hear and how there's always noise. It is never quiet. It is extremely oriented towards getting work done and completing the next assignment and never taking a break. This is the conclusion of how the Ministry of Truth is described.